Hello, genealogists. This is Craig, and it is Just Genealogy, and we'll be having a live stream today. So we're going to try to test out GoToMeeting again and see how it works. This is the code for the meeting at 5 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time or Eastern Standard Time, Eastern Time, whatever we're calling it these days. So I hope to see you there, and we'll try to get it all figured out. As always, maybe after 4 months, we'll actually get it figured out. That is my hope. So again, this is the URL that you want to use to get to our live stream session today at 5 o'clock. You want to hold on to this URL because this will be the URL for all future live streams also. And in fact, it was the URL for all the live streams in the past. Anyway, looking forward to 5 o'clock. We'll see you soon. So it's about 5 or 6 minutes before we're going to start the live stream. So I thought I'd remind you that this is Craig, and this is Just Genealogy, and we are sometimes successful in doing our live streams so that we can share them with people. I hope this is one of those times. We're trying to create a platform whereby everybody can be present on the playing field, and we're not sure that we actually know how to do that. So if you have ideas, you are more than welcome to provide them to us. This will be, we'll record this live stream, and hopefully we will have the ability to take both the audio and the video, combine them together, and bring them together so that we can have a live stream. We're using GoToMeeting because it doesn't have the limitation that Zoom has in regards to the 40 minutes, so we can actually stay together as long as anybody wants to stay. We're hoping to make this monthly event, the second Wednesday of every month at 5 o'clock, to be a question and answer period, what I call Stump Craig kind of time, where people can just pick my brain for whatever question they might have about genealogy. After all, that's what I live for, the opportunity to talk about genealogy, one way or the other. So I'm interested in things like, what do you want me to talk about? I'm interested in things like, what books do you want me to talk about and make available, generally for a discount. Some discounts are larger than others. It's a function of my business model. We provide books both as print-on-demands and as books that we've had in the warehouse for very many years. There are some books that I have cases and cases and cases of books. The Page Boy book from yesterday or today was an example.
It worked.
Why wouldn't it work?
Because it's me.
Well, that's not really a good reason for it not to work.
Usually it doesn't.
It's really warm here in North Carolina.
Here too. But we have had some rain, which has cooled it off some.
Well, when I went to Tennessee, I went along the Nottahala River Valley because I was so frustrated by what went on to calm me down, all those twists and turns and having to focus on the road. And the beauty of the river was enough to keep me going. But I decided that I really didn't want to take 12 hours to get home when normally it only takes 8. So I got off at some point and headed up to 40 and hit the rain. So it's still...
We avoid 40 if at all possible.
Well, I actually do too, but when you're in a hurry, you've got to be in a hurry.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, so I lollygagged on 64 as long as I could. And I could have taken 64 all the way home since I'm 3 or 4 blocks from 64.
Yeah, 64 is right north of us here.
Yeah, but that's north of you in Tennessee, though, right?
Right.
Yeah.
West Tennessee.
So I guess I picked up 64 around Cleveland.
Were you going to the McClung Library? Is that
No,
where
although
you were going?
I drove close to the old Custom House on my way to Tennessee because I went through Knoxville to get down to Chattanooga.
Oh yeah, that's in Knoxville, not Chattanooga.
Right. No, what's in Chattanooga is the Hamilton County Library,
Mm,
not to be confused with the Hamilton County Library in Cincinnati.
right. Well, my husband has Hamilton County, Ohio ancestors, but we have nobody in Hamilton County, Tennessee. So I can't. Well, for East Tennessee, like everybody, like from Anson, Mecklenburg, did did not seem to stop in East Tennessee at all. They went straight, I guess, because the brother of my ancestor got all this land, and he must have been a speculator, and he was a surveyor, and Wilson County's named for him. That they went straight there to Sumner County,
That's
and
interesting because my ancestor, Samuel Thomas Scott, was, I believe, in Anson County, and he got married in Sumner in 1795 to a woman who was from Salisbury, Rowan County, Morrison's. So, and then from Sumner, he moved into Davidson.
yeah, I'd heard you say that you had some in Davidson. I have other people in Davidson. Am I the only one that showed up? Anyway, oh, it's only 4 now anyway. So, oh, here comes somebody else. Um, that I have somebody else in Davidson, but after he had a, he sold land to his brother down in Williamson, and there were some in Marshall and Bedford. But in that family, nobody is in Davidson. They just kind of, well, Davidson was before Sumner, wasn't it?
I don't remember. I do know that um, that's possible, but I don't know what the years were. I just know that my ancestor got married in Sumner in 1795 and was in Davidson after that.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 27, he goes to Gibson County, Indiana, and then down to Posey County, Indiana, where he dies in 1851. Having convinced all of the people in Posey County that he was a Revolutionary War soldier in spite of being born in 1771. He actually was a War of 1812 soldier, pensioner. He was at New Orleans with Andy. And he's 3 names away from Andy on the 1820 Tennessee census.
That must be the one that you talked about with the battles down in New Orleans.
Right. I still haven't done the big battle yet. And I still haven't done the World War II Museum. So those 2 things I have to work on. I still haven't worked on some guy named Team either. I mean, I've worked on it, but I haven't put it together yet. So I'll get there eventually.
Well, when you come to Memphis or Germantown, you should take that to go to the War Museum in New Orleans because you'll be the closest there.
Well, I've been to the War Museum in New Orleans.
Oh,
I just haven't done a video on it yet. I was there in March.
oh, I see.
I was there
I
in
see.
March.
Oh,
I mean, I've done, I think 3 videos on my trip to New Orleans, and this one's the 4th one. What's up with you, Daphne?
Oh, just trying to get my head around all my research. I've been in 2 institute things in July, so that was half my month right there.
Right. What, grip and
IGHR.
IGHR. Did you see me on the screen at IGHR?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever told me what day that was going to be, so I never showed up.
That was Thursday evening.
Yeah, but nobody ever brought to my attention that we would all meet Thursday evening to celebrate all the years of IGHR.
No, it was a good, class. I did Mark Lowe's Colonial Southern States.
Yeah,
Oh, that would be good.
yeah, it would. I taught in that course once, military records. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I also did something on the Creek War. So,
My ancestor, some people, I don't think it's true, but they said that my ancestor being killed going across Alabama in March of 1812, and there was an altercation between him and some Creeks, and that was one of the causes of the Creek War. I think it came a little too far afterwards for it to actually be, but
I think actually, and don't quote me on this, I think actually the causation of the Creek War was the Creeks themselves. And then Jackson aligned himself with, I think, the lower Creeks, although my memory isn't like it.
Weatherford,
Andrew Jackson.
I mean, Weatherford was a half breed.
Yeah. But and then when it was all over with, Jackson didn't like any of them. So, and then there was a guy by the name of Uriah Blue, who was a captain in the United States Army, who took over from Jackson when Jackson left and went elsewhere. So Uriah Blue was responsible for keeping the war going. And gradually what happens is they become the Seminoles. They push themselves down into Florida to get away from it all and join with the Seminoles there. So there's, and then of course the Seminoles never give up. I mean, we don't have any treaties with the Seminoles.
I do have to thank you for doing that one on the Virginia will indices and the few others for the genealogist, that video.
Yeah.
Because I looked in Torrance's, and one of the relatives I was having trouble with, it lists an inventory for him. But of course, that's locked on Family Search, so I have to either go to the Library of Virginia or an affiliate library to see it.
What county is it in?
Frederick.
So,
but it's in 1747 or 8. I can't remember which.
I can't remember whether Russell's book includes. I mean, we just published something that has a problem with Frederick County. Oh wait, this is Virginia, right?
Right.
Yeah, that was Maryland. But
I live in Frederick County, Maryland. So if you need something, let me know.
That's why I was confused. Trying to think whether the individual Frederick County, Virginia records are locked.
Just the really old ones. All the others are unlocked on Family Search, but of course I need the first book.
Have you tried clicking it anyway?
I did, and it just kept telling me, putting up those little blank things saying nope.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, darn it.
But you could go to the parking lot of a Family History Center and do it from there, couldn't you? Or an affiliate library? Isn't Frederick County Public Library an affiliate library?
I don't know if it is or not.
I would check to see if it's an affiliate library or not, because if it's an affiliate library, you can look at it there.
Yeah, I'll just go talk to Mary Mannix, who's the
right. And I would also talk to Mary, because why doesn't Mary have a copy of the microfilm there anyway?
Well, I haven't had a chance to get down there.
Yeah. Well, no, in Frederick, it would be the Handley Library. So you might be able to go to the Handley Library in Winchester, and they probably
Okay.
will have the microfilm there.
It's just finding time when things are open with my job, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
This may not be true at the libraries you're talking about, the affiliate libraries, but they may not still have it on there. But our website here, and we're an affiliate library, they have a listing on the website of the family history library microfilms that they still have that they didn't send back when it all ended.
Right.
Oh.
So you might look because they may have it. Of course, if you get there, then it's unlocked anyway. So
I mean, I'm going to be going places. It's just, it was so much more convenient to do it from home.
Yeah, no kidding.
right.
Well, we do have Gilreath land deeds for Frederick County, Virginia, and we have Odell's very early 1745 book, Pioneers of Old Frederick.
Yeah, I have that book.
So are they in there?
No, this is one of those relatives that I have not found much about, but I went and looked in Torrance's book and his name was actually listed, and I'm like, oh, I got to go see this. Not the will,
What's
just an inventory.
what's the surname?
Burnley.
Hmm.
It's
If
one
it
of
was going to
the,
be Alford, I'd be interested.
yeah, so, you know, I'll find it eventually.
Sure.
But because of looking at the index, there is something more out there that I haven't found. So that's good to
Yeah,
know.
at least you know what will book it's in.
Hmm. So, you know, but I didn't know about that until you'd mentioned it on your video. So
Well,
thank you.
actually, I did that because Teresa Kelly asked me to do it. Because she then went to the Virginia Genealogical Society website and put a link to the video because I talk about all the different kinds of. The only thing I
Hmm.
forgot was that there are two books of West Virginia, 1800 to 1865, that of course, or 1863 maybe, that deal with, and those are Virginia counties until 1863. But I wasn't thinking about it when I actually put that all together.
You mentioned that one of your videos a couple days later.
Right. Yeah, I've started putting corrections in all along so that people continue to look at all the videos.
I've watched everyone except for I still have to watch the 47-minute one you did earlier this week. I just haven't had that much time to sit down and do it.
Right. Well, I don't do very many of those, but they go a long way to getting to the 8,000 hours I have to put together. So, in this genealogical proof standard thing that I've been doing, which is one of the ones that is the one that you're talking about waiting to
Mhm.
do, I'm trying to determine whether, I have at least 3 or 4 more sessions on what's left in the genealogical proof standard, but I could then go in to look at each chapter in the genealogical proof standard book, which deals with each element, and do a really deep dive. And I just haven't decided whether I should really do that next or whether I should take the genealogical proof standards book and each day do one of the standards, and do like a standard every week, like talk about standard number 1 for 5 minutes,
Mhm.
then go and talk about standard number 2 3 days later for 5 minutes or something like that. I just haven't
I know
decided.
some of those standards are so kind of related that grouping them to me makes sense.
Well, that's true, but then I have to decide how to group them.
Yeah.
So, and I wouldn't want to miss part of one because I focused on another one.
Hmm.
The only thing I'm
True.
thinking of. But I haven't decided what to do. In fact, I don't have. I've been doing these day by day, and unless I'm traveling, I don't create them off into the future.
Right.
Um, so, But what I'll probably do with those is I'll do those quickly and put them off into the future so that they go some distance to give me some breathing room, because I have no breathing room at all.
That's why you're tired.
No, that I'm tired because the warehouse is so hot.
Oh,
I think because it's actually 85 degrees in spite of a fan and a air conditioner and everything else. I think that's
Oh,
the real reason. And COVID. I mean, because I've been tired ever since I got COVID. But live tired. That's what I say. Betty Lou, you can ask a question anytime you want. You don't have to get permission. Sorry, I didn't see your note till just now. Are you there? No.
the microphone doesn't seem to be muted.
Yeah. Theoretically, we should be able to hear you, but we can't. So just type your question into the chat, maybe, and we'll get started. Maybe we'll figure out what's wrong, because it looks like you should be able to be, for us to be able to hear you, because we haven't muted you. It's probably on your end since we're all talking.
I was going to ask her if she had any Burtons in Mississippi.
Uh, well, let's move along and she'll catch up, so we don't have dead space. Or type it into the chat. Oh, there we go. When you talk about sources, can you go over how to know primary and secondary information on, like, a death certificate where the death is primary but the birth is secondary? I don't truly worry about such things because in my head I know what they are. So what I mean, if I were to do it, I'd make a photocopy of it and I would just take a magic marker and say S and P and, just identify each field based on who the informant was. Like, because obviously the diagnosis is primary because the physician is doing it, but the names of the parents are secondary because the informant is doing it. And unless you know the relationship of the informant. If you know the relationship of the informant, that can be different, because if it's a son, they may or may not know. If it's a neighbor, they may be guessing. So this is why things can't survive by themselves. They had to be supported by other things. I'm wondering why we can't hear you. Is your microphone up? Still can't hear you. I mean, with it all depends, whether it's a birth certificate or a death certificate or marriage certificate, it all depends on the relationship of the informant to the. You can hear me, right? Okay. It all depends on the relationship of the informant to the information, whether it's primary or secondary.
Here's an example. In West Virginia, the two different, and it's bad because I've looked everywhere for a primary document
You mean original?
that,
You mean
yeah,
original?
Rich, you went through this and we get these names straight. An original, um, and all I can find is these two conflicting county history and one's a state history. And they say that my I think it's great grandmother's maiden name was one thing and the other book says another. Or in our family, had always said it was one. Well, I've got their death certificates, and the informants are all the children for her and for their siblings, and where it says what the parents' names are, they all say that the maiden name was the name that our family says instead of what the other book says.
Okay, so what county is it in?
Marion,
Marion County, West Virginia?
right, up
And
there in the Northwest.
yeah, are there marriage records for Marion County, West Virginia?
Well, I think it's that they start in 1853 and they got married supposedly about 1850 because their first son was born in 1851.
Okay, but
So,
there still would be. I mean, yes, there was vital record registration beginning in 1853.
John, can you look in that top drawer for my headset? I
oh, I
can't.
can hear her now.
We can hear you now.
Oh, you can hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I don't know what I turned it off and turned it back on.
Well,
I was
That
gonna ask my
must have
son for
worked.
some help.
that probably worked. So,
I guess so.
so when does Marion County become a county? It's the first question you have to ask.
1837, I
Okay.
think. I'd have to
So,
look at it.
so you want to see if you can find marriage bonds
Do I
and
have to
marriage
change
returns. Because although vital registration begins in 1853, people were still getting married, and it still had to be
Right.
it still had to be accounted for somehow.
So
So
you got to find those whether they're probably somewhere else, not on, because that all those marriage record books were from that wvculture.org website. But I'd need to find where offline these things are.
right. So I would look in two places. I would look in the Library of Virginia, and I would look in the West Virginia State Archives and see where marriage bonds are for Marion County. I mean, I don't
Mm,
know. Given the year, I don't know whether they're. I would think that they would be in West Virginia, but there should be marriage bonds for the county because people got married.
right.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay, because I just switched headphones.
sure.
I can't use those. You can keep them.
Oh, another thing is they may have been the first one of those couples that went to another state. That might be the problem.
Of course.
Those won't pay.
But you have to start with Marion County.
Right. Well, I've looked at all the ones, the surrounding counties, even into Maryland, but
Well, how far is it from Charleston or Morgantown?
Morgantown is in Monongalia.
Right, I know, but I'm talking about those are the two major cities. Isn't Marion up that direction?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just saying that if you can't find them in Marion or the adjacent counties, then go to Charleston and go to Morgantown.
okay. And also you said the Library of Virginia and
The West
the
Virginia Archives.
West Virginia Archives. Okay, thank you.
I would go to Family Search and see in the card catalog what's there from Marion County. just to see.
Okay.
You might want to check the Family Search wiki too, because they'll
Right.
give you ideas of where to look.
Right.
But I haven't seen any place so far for the bonds.
Well, I think that's what you have to look for since it's
It's
before.
in the returns, you said.
Yeah. Well, somebody had to marry them, and when they married them, they would have reported it to someone somewhere. Now,
Unless they were a circuit rider carrying it around themselves.
well, even though it was in 1851, you still in the marriage register, if you look in the back of the book, sometimes you find marriage returns there instead of integrated in the alphabet.
Hmm.
I found that in a couple of Virginia counties where the whole marriage return is in the back of the book. And their names are not in the front of the book.
It's interesting.
So are you saying they were Methodist?
They were probably, well, later, a couple of generations later, they were Baptist, but
Well, I mean, the issue becomes one of we have to figure out who married them. Was it a JP or was it a minister of the gospel?
yeah, I have never seen anything that would say. The only indication, like of the date, is in their daughter's DAR application, where she gave a date, a specific date, but did not tell where.
Okay, but when you look at the application, is there a check mark above that date?
That would mean they had checked it off, right?
That would mean that they agreed and that they found that somewhere.
Okay, I'll have to go back and look at that. Because I've looked for 40 years and I hadn't found.
Yeah, but you haven't known me for 40 years, so,
Well, almost 40 years with a big gap in between.
right.
Because it was about 1987 that I met you at Grandfather Mountain,
Oh, really? Yeah,
where
those
you
were,
gave one of the first genealogy lectures I ever heard.
oh, at Lee's McRae?
Right.
Yeah, those were the days.
You had a lot of black hair then.
Thanks.
No, most of my genealogy is up north and in the west. I don't have any Virginia or South Carolina
Well, then
research. Right?
you're not going to help me with any Mississippi Burtons.
Sorry. I can tell you a little bit about Arkansas because I'm living there, but that's it.
Where in Arkansas?
I'm in Lone Oak. It's between,
Yeah, right outside Little
So,
Rock.
yeah.
so I learned about my ancestor, Samuel Thomas Scott, and was successful in actually connecting to him in the beginning because of a War of 1812 application for a Pauline Scott who lived in Lonoke.
Really?
And in Lonoke, there were Campbells and Scotts that were my cousins.
Okay.
But because of the work that she did, she was a descendant of a guy by the name of David Moore Scott, who was the son of Samuel Thomas, and I was a descendant of John Owen. And my people moved from Davidson County, Tennessee, into Indiana, and David Moore's people moved into Arkansas, and half the family moved into Arkansas and Missouri, half the family moved into Indiana and Illinois. So,
Okay. A lot of people see Lone Oak written down and they have no idea how to pronounce it. It's funny.
You mean Lenoki?
And then, yeah. And then right now I'm doing, and I wish I could find someone who could help me research in northwestern Italy
Ooh.
in a region called Osta.
Well,
And
whenever I have any Italian issues, the person I talk to is Melanie Holtz.
well, that's the problem. Osta is about as much French as it is Italian.
That won't prevent her from helping you.
And the records up until about 1910 are mainly in French.
Well, she has a team of
Mhm.
folks. I forget what then. She's got some. Every once in a while, my email has an advertisement from her. I don't quite know how she works that out, but you can get to her through the APG directory.
Okay, right now I'm busy because there's two really good databases, one on Ancestry and one on Family Search.
Sure.
Ancestry has the vital records from about 1867 to about 1939, and Family Search has the men records because the Selective Service here from about 1795 up until about 1930.
But those are all forms, so you can read the French pretty easily.
The draft registrations is all forms.
Right.
The vital registrations, the first few years, and it depends upon the area, what town, is longhand until about 1870, 1873. So I have a few
I don't
years
know
that
if
are
they've got
longhand.
one. You can look on the Family Search website where their learning center is.
Mhm.
I have taken both the German and the Latin handwriting. Well, that was both from Fritz Youngling, and he's great. But I've never seen one for French. But if
Yeah,
they've got one in a week, they do it over a week. You will be able to pick out things even in those paragraph forms, paragraph records that you didn't think you'd be able to do.
oh, I've been working on this for about a year and a half now, and I've gotten pretty good at it. And it's like with English, you have some clerks that beautiful handwriting, you can read it, no problem, and other clerks, you're wondering, that's an official record? That's just scribble scrabble.
That's just like our censuses.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But that's where I've been working right now. And then that family, when they immigrated to Pennsylvania and then out west. So
did they immigrate into Western Pennsylvania or into Eastern Pennsylvania?
Cambria and Huntington County. I think that's Western.
Right. So were they coal miners?
They were coal miners.
Okay.
And they stayed there for about 20, 25 years before moving out to California.
Spell the area in Italy.
Aosta.
Oh, Valdosta. That's where
Valley
Valdosta Georgia
d'Aosta
got its name from.
Yeah. It's now a valley, but it's an autonomous region, meaning that it's not an Italian province, and it allows for the combination of the records being in the double language. And the family stories basically says every other year they spoke Italian, and in between they spoke French, just depending upon who wanted to claim them that year.
That's kind of like Alsace-Lorraine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There isn't that much fighting where she's talking about, whereas in Alsace-Lorraine, they were fighting all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Mine's all up in the Alps. In fact, they're at the base of Mont Blanc.
Sounds wonderful. You ought to go
Yeah.
there.
I've got a pen by that name.
What, Mount Blanc?
Yeah.
But I figured out, finally was able to figure out, they were, I think the furthest they were from the Swiss border was, how far? Was about 36 kilometers
Mm.
from the Swiss border. And it's an old Roman road that's been there since 1800, well, not 1800, for centuries. And it's just a well-laid road that everybody's been going up and down on. So
Did they move to California during the Depression or was it earlier?
it was earlier. It was about 1920. It was depending upon which part of the family. It was between 1910 and 1920.
Okay.
1925, I'm sorry. Because my grandpa was still in Pennsylvania in 1920.
Well, it's
But
pretty.
he was in California. He was in California by 1929.
So what do you think is the reason they moved to California?
I don't know why my family actually moved. I don't know the full story, but I know two of the sisters married two boys who had gone out for the two brothers from Sicily who had gone out to California for because of the San Francisco earthquake to help rebuild. And then they ended up in the farming valleys and just went to farming.
Yeah, my grandfather upped his family and moved into Albuquerque in the 1940s. And they spent 6 months there and came back home. They could not stand it.
The heat.
I think it was more like the dirt. They didn't like the dirt.
Well,
Where did they move from?
Outside of Washington, D.C.
Probably just the lack of rain.
Yeah, I have no idea. But he turned around and came back. They all came back.
I was going to say I have an interesting story about World War II, though. I found out that my great-grand aunt and uncle, the only reason why they didn't go into an internment camp was because of the side of the road they'd lived on. Because they were both born in, no, he was born in Italy. She was first generation born here. I think. I can't remember because two of those girls were born in, my great-grandmother was born in Italy and then a sister was, and I don't know if this was which sister this was, but they didn't go in the intern camp because they picked the right side of the road to live on. And they were the only ones in the family that were picked on, I guess you would say. So, and they were farmers. They did a lot of artichokes for years out there.
In California, yeah.
In California. So, but it's been interesting. And my great-grandfather ended up in a institution. Now, let me set the background for you. This would have been 1910. He went in about 1918 with phone lines being new and electrical lines being new. And you know how some people can hear the buzzing in the lines? He was apparently one of those who could, and so he thought people were talking about him over the lines.
Oh.
So they put him in, and my sister-in-law was able to find his medical records and all the sheets that went with it. And he was fluent in 3 languages. French, Italian, and English.
And
And it was
was this in Italy or was this in California,
no, this was in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania?
And what's nice about it is it gives his family. It says he had 3 brothers and a sister, which helps. It's helping put that family together. And it said he had 4 children, one that died at 9 months, which helped because I'd found that birth date, but hadn't found any more information about him. But I knew he was probably dead because he was born in 1902 and he was not with the family in 1910. And the mother did list a difference, said she had 4 children, only 3 living. So that's an example of negative evidence, because you would have expected him living there since his sister 2 years older than him and his brother 2 years younger than him were in the same household.
That's not negative evidence, because there's the evidence is there that somebody died and you knew there were 4.
Okay. Yeah, but it helped that in his paperwork, it said that the boy died at, it was either 6 or 9 months. So, because Pennsylvania is not real good about death records in the early 1900s.
It took me 30 years to get my grandmother's death record, and she died in 1930. I mean, now it's on Family Search, but it took forever to get it.
Yeah, I struggled getting my great-grandfather's death record, even finding his death date, because as far as my mom knew, her grandfather died about 1915. And I asked my grandfather once about it, and he says, no, his dad died about 1925. So we were kind of confused, but now that we know that he had gone into the institution, it makes sense.
Well, he still should have been at the
Because
1920 census.
well, he was, but he was not with the family. He was another place, and I think that one has the misspelling, because I have 2 family names that if the person is giving the information, it's correctly spelled. But if somebody else is giving the information just from what someone's saying, it's always misspelled. And that is one, because the last name is Bionaz, and it's Bionaz, not Beo, but Bi. So we finally found him. Once we found him, we were happy.
I bet.
But like I said, we knew that, the family story was Grandpa had to quit school for a while because his dad was no longer around, but we didn't know why. My mom had just assumed that he had died, but no, he had left for another reason. So
I had a question about the internment camps. In World War I, how did they determine whether someone obviously my name is Schultz and my mother-in-law was a Folger, and that was German, and neither of those families were affected in any way by questioning their loyalty?
Because it's largely because
How long they'd been here?
yes.
And
Yeah.
it was World War II.
And she's talking about World War One.
Yeah.
If it was World War II, it would be because they weren't active in the Bund, the German Bund. If they would have been active in the German Bund, then something might have happened. But when you consider that German, there was a time when German missed being the official language of the United States by 1 vote. So,
Yeah.
I mean, so it isn't like we don't have a lot of Germans. It's just the only Germans you would be concerned about would be the new ones. You wouldn't be concerned
I
about
see.
the old ones. You know, the ones that
And then,
have been here since 1775, they didn't care about those.
and it had to do with how close you were to the coasts too.
Right. I mean, if you
Hmm.
live in New Jersey or Delaware or something like that, they might question you. But if you lived
Yeah.
in the hinterland,
Well, the Schultzes were in Newark, New Jersey,
well,
but he
Well, it
was
depended upon,
I guess it was kind of depending on, like, he was an engineer and he had a good job and he wasn't suspect in any way.
right.
yeah. Well, the other thing is the Germans and the Italians and that had no real problem saying they don't support their king, that they are, support the United States. The Japanese, though, the older ones thought that by saying what was being asked of them, they were saying that they were turning their backs on their ancestors. So there was a cultural and traditional misunderstanding there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And there wasn't that misunderstanding with the Germans and Italians. But my understanding is I think it was 100 miles from the coastline.
Hmm.
And then my grandfather served in the Navy, but he had to provide records about his parents and family.
You know,
And we were hoping to someday find those records.
in
Well,
World,
that would be great.
are you talking about World War One or World War Two?
World War II. I have a question, though. I know there's a
Well,
72,
Yeah.
maybe it's 50 years for military, but he worked on Mares Island in the naval shipyards until he retired. Would they consider the end of his military career when he left the naval reserves or when he retired from the shipyards
When he left the Naval
as a
Reserve,
civilian?
because retiring from the shipyards, he was a civilian.
Okay, so we should then be able to get his military
So
records
does
then
he have
now.
any, this is your great grandfather?
No, my grandfather.
Your grandfather. So are any of his children alive?
No, my mom was the last one to die.
Well, you should, if you go
And
to archives.gov, I mean, when did he retire?
they
When did he retire from the military?
about 54, 55.
Yeah, they will become archival records in a couple of years if they aren't already. But you should, as a granddaughter, you should qualify. So go to
No,
archive.
we don't.
What do you
We
mean?
don't. We tried.
What do you mean you try?
My sister-in-law tried with my brother, and she had the proof that both his daughter and his wife and he was dead, and my brother was right there with her, and they wouldn't give her the records.
Yeah, but that was your sister-in-law.
No, but my brother was with her. My brother was there also requesting it.
Well, I'd try again because they
You
became.
hit the wrong person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would just try again, and I don't know whether they're up to 55 yet or not. They may be right at 54 right now. But go and look, and they'll tell you. Go to archives.gov,
Okay.
and the second section where it says military records, click on that.
Okay. I also had a question about pensions,
What
and I know this is
what kind of pensions?
Civil War pensions.
Okay.
My great great grandfather, Reuben Miner, was in the Dakota Territories. He was doing Indian work, I guess you would say, during the Civil War. But he did qualify because of the time period for Civil War pension. While he was in the service, he lost his leg, so he left the service as an invalid. He received invalid pay up until his death. Now, he married shortly after he got out of the service, had a family, his wife died, those children grew up, and then in about 1900, he remarried and had a son. I have his son's pension records, but I'm thinking if I asked for his pension records, I'd get a lot more information.
His son's pension
Because
his son's pension records are in the same pension envelope as his is. So let's
I don't think,
no, that's
let me explain why I don't think they are. One, it's over 100 pages because there's a lot going on. The wife, the second wife, and the son had nothing to do with the first half, and all his children from the first half had already been married and had children. In his son's pension records, the only records in there was his disability being listed and every time he had come up to get an increase in his wages. There's nothing else in there
okay.
about his previous marriage.
Okay. Well, what you're talking about, an increase of his wages, is an increase of his pension.
Yeah, of his pension.
Okay. So
And
his pension is there with his minor son's pension.
but it's not not his whole packet though.
Well, I would not know that until looking at it. But what makes you think you don't have the whole? What? First of all, when did you get it?
Okay, it came to me by a cousin.
Okay, so
The whole pension was, and the reason why I don't think I've got all of his is there is nothing in that packet prior to 1902, 1905 that talks about his first family.
well,
The only thing in that packet is about the first family is that his first wife had died and had witness statements for that. Where it listed the children of the first family, it only listed the children that were alive at that time, which was about half the other children had already died, and the fact that they were already married with their own children.
okay, but there was no requirement for him to list any children except those under the age of 16.
What about during the lifetime? Like he got the pension in 1865. Would he not have had to list them as they were, in 1872, list that he has now a new child?
He started getting his pension in 1865.
He got it right as soon as he got out of the service.
Because
He
of his
lost
leg.
He lost his leg.
Okay.
So we're talking about an invalid pension
Invalid.
and talking about
Yeah.
a survivor's pension. See, he had an invalid pension.
Okay. The survivor's pension and the invalid pension are the same thing.
And I'm saying that there's nothing in
well,
not all of the
Does it have
invalid.
if you
It
think
would have an S in front of it, right?
no, it doesn't because
No.
it is Civil War. It would have an S in front
Oh.
of it if it was Revolutionary War.
Oh,
So what you have is there's a designation of survivor original, survivor application, and the survivor certificate, and there's widow original and widow certificate. So
Yeah.
but the issue is, see, you didn't get this from the archives, you got it from somebody else. But normally, if they were only going to give you part of the pension, it would have only been about 10 or 20 pages at the most. But because you have 100 pages, there was no requirement for him to provide any information about his wife or his children in 1865.
But what about as he got married and
No.
as he had children during that time?
No, it would be the requirement of his widow to provide that information because none of those people qualify for the pension. None of those people,
Okay.
none of those people, while he's alive, the government doesn't care about those people per se. I mean, there are specific times when the government, depending on the act, and there are like 64 different acts, but depending on the
Yeah.
act, in the application, they may list the children and their dates of birth. So in my ancestors' union pension, when he applies for his pension, he does list all of the children and their dates of birth.
Hmm.
When his widow applies for a pension, she only lists one kid and her date of birth because that's the kid who's under 16. So I would take this pension that you have and I would divide it into piles of this belongs to him, this belongs to the kid, this belongs to him, this belongs to the kid, and then I would put it in chronological order, and that may
Yeah, it's already that way.
so you've got two pensions there.
No.
But you have, isn't there a minor child pension? Isn't that what you told us? What's this guy's name?
Reuben F. Minor, or Reuben Fletcher Minor. There's a divorce in there too. Shortly after this minor child was born, Reuben divorced his second wife. And the cousin that was looking for this pension was looking for information about that second marriage and that youngest child. But see, that record doesn't even have in it whether he agreed or disagreed to have an artificial leg.
It doesn't matter. I mean, seriously, it doesn't matter whether he agrees or not. So who? Oh, that's John. Oh my. That's really weird. When you click on Reuben F. Minor, you get Rhoda A. Minor and John O. Minor. Not,
No, it's or Reuben Fletcher Minor.
well, very,
Miner.
yeah, I went for Miner.
Okay.
Actually, I went for both of them. OR and ER.
I mean, all my other Civil War pensions are straightforward because I know that if he's had a pension and he dies and his widow takes the pension, I know they basically take his pension and put it in with widows. But this is different. This has a few nuances
Is
in
he
it.
with the Wisconsin Infantry?
Yes.
Okay. I'm giving a talk next Tuesday to the Wisconsin Genealogical Society on how to research a Wisconsin soldier in the Civil War.
Okay.
I think it's Tuesday.
Now he also moved around quite a bit too.
Okay, so this shows that he got an invalid pension. It shows the minor got a pension.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have to divide those out
Okay.
because you might be being confused by the minor.
Do they
Okay.
have different numbers or they?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
have
they
a
have different. They have different numbers.
Here, I'll show you the card. Got it?
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, I see the number is different.
But the minors, and it's not in there, is Texas.
What do you mean, Texas?
The minor we did not apply for his father had moved down to Texas, and that's where the minor was born, and where the minor.
Oh, the minor. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So notice there's no on these cards, these are the organizational cards,
Yeah,
not the ancestry cards. So only
yeah,
the ancestry cards might have the state on them. These organizational cards don't.
okay.
Okay. So
But the main thing I was looking for in his was the tracking of his movements, because he would, we've got 4 or 5 different states between the time he left the military till the time he died.
well, you can
So tracking his movements,
well,
Wouldn't those pension records show that?
well,
but
they
the ones I've got do not.
yeah,
No, the payment records.
the payment records.
But there's no payment records because that was not needed for the son.
No. There are no payment records in the pension to begin with. What you want to find is, when does his pension end? When's he
When
die?
he died, I think it was 1905 or
Yeah.
1910, something
You
like
could
that.
have, if he was traveling after 1906, you could have tracked him in the 1906 pension cards. But the other way to track him is through the pension payments, which is an absolute zoo to have to deal with,
Oh, okay.
because you don't even know where to begin. Except I would,
Well, the only way where I know where to begin is between where he was at certain census period
right,
for certain censuses
exactly.
and for children's birth dates,
But
places.
every time he moved, he switched pension offices just because
Yeah.
it would be crazy not to. So you will find him when you. I'll do a video on Civil War pensions that I have the stuff for my great grandfather that I did for him. But I was waiting to go to the archives because I wanted to do a couple of other Wisconsin soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
You also have a legacy webinar doing all that about the
That
pension
too.
records.
Yeah. I would love to go to the National Archives because I have that one, and then I have a Spanish American soldier that I'm having some confusion with his pension records.
Wait,
And
what war is that?
what?
What war is that?
Spanish American in 1898. This is a different ancestor.
And what's his name?
His name is Hadley C. Hawk.
Is it worthwhile to go on and try to order pension records now? Or are they still putting people off?
Yeah, are they allowing us to?
Did you say Cox?
Hawk, Hawk.
Oh, Hawk. Yeah, I think it just takes a long time. What's his middle initial?
C. Hadley, Hadleye. I think it's EYE.
It's not Hadley.
That's it. I can never keep it straight, that ending.
He's in the 7th Ohio Infantry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He's got a headstone application.
Yes, in California. He had got into a soldier's home. They closed out his pension while he was in the soldier's home.
No.
He died a couple.
They did not.
No.
They did not
No,
close
it
it.
is on.
He got his
It is
pension,
on him.
turned it over to the soldiers' home every time.
Okay.
They
Well, it says, it does say on his medical records, closed it, whatever.
yeah, but he didn't
After
get it.
after he dies, then his widow applies for a pension and gets a widow's pension, but she doesn't die until 1961. And so the problem with that is we're not sure if I can get his pension because it's not been long enough to get his wife's pension. Because of privacy laws.
Well, let's look at the card and see what it says.
Okay.
The problem is we have to find the right card because evidently there's more than one of these guys. So Hadley,
Let's see.
so the number is 21.
Let me get into this card.
121563. Okay.
Let's see. I've got to get to his military records. Okay. Pension.
There we go. I think this is probably it. Okay. So Hadley C. Hawk, Company B, 7th Ohio Infantry, 1899. He gets a pension. And then in 1931, he dies and his widow gets a pension.
Yeah.
So
What is that N in front of her pension certificate number? You see what I'm talking about?
M-26.
Is that M dash or N6-15-31?
No, it's M-26, and that's the law, and it's AMB-15-31.
Okay.
So you should be able to get this because it doesn't have an XC number or a C number. So
Okay.
I would go ahead and get it. Now, recognize that their pensions are going to be in the same envelope.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
But even though she didn't die until 61, it's not covered by privacy.
you won't know until you try.
Okay.
Um,
Because I've got his hospital records. I've got his his military service records and everything.
well, I don't believe there's a privacy issue. Dead people don't have privacy, according to the federal.
True,
Huh?
but they won't let it go unless it's an immediate family member.
They don't play those kind of games with pension records. They play those kind of games with personnel records, not with pension records. So you got to try.
Okay, there you are. I know I tried a few years ago. Oh, no, it wasn't a few years back. It was about probably 15, 20 years back.
Yeah, well,
and I couldn't get it.
We'll try again.
Yeah. And you said that they're now filling those records?
No, I didn't. I don't know what they're doing. But until you won't get it.
That's what I thought, that if I didn't go on and
here,
get my name in, it'd be longer.
Yeah. What I was looking for here was, is there an XC number or a C number at the bottom of the card? And there isn't. So
what do those mean?
Well, the way that the pensions ended up in the National Archives in 1932, 1933, they accessioned all the ones that were in drawers where there were no open. Okay, so those are the regulars that they got, and they left all these drawers that had at least one open file in it behind, and they assigned an XC number to it. Then as new ones came in, they assigned a C number to it. This file has neither an XC or a C number.
Okay, what is an XC number? Because I've got a reply from them when I first sent for
Oh, well, let me look at the ancestry. Let me look at the ancestry card. Maybe that has the X. Maybe that.
I can give you that number.
Because if she didn't die till 1961, then it would still be open. Have still been open then. Sounds like.
Should have had an
Yeah,
X or a C number. So let me look.
the sheet they sent is the pension application files in our custody were considered closed in about 1929. And the XC number is XC2638893.
Yeah. So that means, let me look at it. That means it could be in the National Archives or it could be in,
VA?
no, they're all in St. Louis. The VA gave
Oh.
them all to St. Louis in 2008.
Mm.
Okay. Okay.
Luckily, after everything burned down.
Right.
That was what, back in the 1960s, early 70s?
73.
73.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is an XC number here. Okay. So this is the XC number is the way that you're going to order it.
Okay, because see, last ordered it by the pension number on the pension card.
Well, the XC number is the pension card.
Okay.
Okay. There's the pension number. That XC number is the way that it is filed. So it could be filed in the National Archives or it could be filed in St. Louis. I would start with the National Archives.
Okay. And I guess what I'd do would be and I've done this in the past, is here's your form, here's the copy of the paperwork I've got, in case you're questioning my form.
Right.
I know
And
it's when it's something like this where it's not clear cut
Well,
or
And
normal.
an XC
if the
number,
National Archives doesn't have it, will they tell her that it's at the personnel?
they might. They basically, if they don't have it, they'll send her a form with a check mark on it to tell her to check St. Louis.
Okay.
See, my great grandfather, he too has an XC number, but his file is in the National Archives.
Okay.
But his wife died in, I don't remember, but it was in the 30s, I think.
Yeah.
So anyway, but that XC number is the number you need in order to get the correct form. See, if you would have
Okay.
provided that other number, that 1531 number, they would never be able to find it because it's not filed by that number. They're always filed by the number all the way to the right and all the way to the bottom.
Okay. Okay.
Okay?
Yeah. It's been a while because the last 10, 15 years, I've had major health crisis and personal crisis one after another, and I'm just getting back into all of this.
Okay.
So that's what I've been doing. Those were my questions, were on the pensions.
Okay.
I did quite a bit. I've probably been doing it longer than you have. I've been doing it since about 77. And I have on one line, the line that Ruben's on, his daughter and granddaughter worked for close to 100 years before the last one passed on that line.
Well, I need to share with you that the first
Yeah.
time I touched a pension was on the 2nd of August of 1969 in the National Archives. So it was a nice try
Yeah.
on your part to think you've been doing it longer than I have.
Well, you keep saying, what, in the 80s or 90s, so,
Well, that's when I retired from the Navy.
okay.
But I've been a genealogist since I was 16. I've only been a professional since the 80s and 90s.
Okay. See, both my dad and my grandfather, his father-in-law, were in the Navy. People say the Civil War, you have brothers fighting against brothers. Well, not for me. My family, it's the Revolutionary War where I had brothers fighting against brothers. Civil War, they were all Northerners.
Yeah.
Those of us who are lucky, our family was in the Navy instead of the Army. And the Air Force, or wasn't the Air Force then. So our records weren't burned up in 73.
Yeah, Army Air Corps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Navy, Marine Corps, they didn't have that problem.
Unless the records had already been transferred to the National Archives, which thankfully mine had.
All right. Shelley, do you have anything?
Muted.
Okay, is that better?
Yep.
Yes.
Don't have any particular questions. I have a little progress to report
Okay.
on Lucinda Curley, which we talked about last time. I went through the 1850 and 1860 censuses for Rabun County, Georgia, and found about 10 Lucindas. Most of them were either already married to somebody else or definitely too old. There were two who were rather interesting because they're about the right age. And one of them was a Benfield and one of them was a Bramblett. And both of those names are families that have already married into the teams.
Ah,
Interesting.
yes.
So I've been poking around with the Bramblets because I hadn't worked on them before.
I'll try to get your team stuff done this month because
Thank you.
I've had it a while. It's just it requires work.
Yeah, tell me about it. And then I also have found in the 1900 census, completely by accident, because I was looking for something else, several Curley families in Rabun and Towns counties, which is Towns is the next one over from Rabun.
Right.
Where they are in Towns looks a little bit far away from where John Team was,
Uh-huh.
but it's possible.
Well, you want to go back and look at them in the previous censuses.
I do. Yeah, I've started working on that. Unfortunately, that 1890 hole is kind of a nuisance.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I have pushed a couple of them a little bit further back.
Okay.
So working on
But what state in 1890?
it. Georgia.
Because for me, my families are in North Dakota and Wisconsin, and they have the 1885 and the 1895 census. So
Yeah.
So
Well, I have not found that Georgia does a state census. They were great in New York. I
yeah,
have a New York line, and they're just a string of pearls, you know? Great.
yeah,
So the guy I'm researching in Wisconsin is from Walworth County, and he moves to Wisconsin, and he moves to Walworth, South Dakota, or North Dakota. One of those. I think it's Walworth County, South Dakota, which is named for Walworth County, Wisconsin. It gets created in like 1875 or something. He doesn't move there till the 1890s, but I'm just thinking that all those people in Walworth, South Dakota were people from Walworth County, Wisconsin, for them to name the county after Walworth County, Wisconsin. And I had never seen that. I've known this guy for a long time, but I didn't, and I knew he moved to South Dakota to a place called Shelby, South Dakota. But Shelby is the county seat of Walworth, and I never noticed that he was actually in Walworth County before. So it's kind of interesting to me.
yeah.
Does anybody have anything
Well,
else today?
I was gonna say, I'm gonna go. Thank you.
Sure.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I do have another question
Sure.
that just occurred to me. Um, same brick wall. So John Team died in the war. And it occurred to me, and I don't know why I didn't think of this before. All of his children were under 7. So there must have been a guardianship. And he died, so there must have been a probate.
Well, there
I
wouldn't,
can't find either of
there
those.
wouldn't, it depends. Usually in this time frame, when they went off to war, they wrote a will. So you want to check and see if he has a will. Now, he may not, he may have had a will but no estate because he had nothing.
Well, I don't think he owned property.
Well, but you still have to look. But
Yeah.
the will's going to be probated in the county in which he lived, so you can check.
Yeah, that's where I've been looking. And Rabun is not a burned county.
Well, he may not have had a will, and he may
I know he may have been one of those silly people who thinks he's immortal.
You're right. And Lucinda gets married, right?
She remarries later, yeah.
So, I mean, so everything would have gone to Lucinda anyway.
Yeah.
So,
But it might have given me some
right.
hints as to her familial relationship.
You need to look at all kinds of different kinds of probate records, not just wills.
Oh, I know.
So I would start looking for an inventory or an appraisal.
Yeah. Inventory would be very helpful because I've noticed in the other ones that I've looked at that often it's family members who are buying the stuff.
Absolutely. So that would be helpful.
Yeah.
With
the guardianship, I'm kind of afraid that it might be Leander who becomes the guardian.
and I'm pretty confident that that's what happened, but there may not be a court document to say that.
Yeah, he was her brother-in-law. So he's a likely candidate.
Well, he is a candidate, but her husband is a candidate also.
Well, that's Leander.
Yeah.
But they didn't marry until 8 years after John died.
There'd have to have been a guardian sooner than that, wouldn't there?
Yes.
Absolutely, with a 7, 6,
What I'm
and 2
saying,
year.
yes, but what I'm saying is they may not have been appointed by a court. They may
It may just have been
done
sort of
by
an
family.
ad hoc thing.
look for equity suits. Look and see if there are any equity suits.
Okay.
Look in the court. Look in the civil suits in Rayburn County. See if there's anything there.
Okay.
And much earlier than that, like in the person I'm looking for supposedly died in 1809 and had 2 sons, one of which was my ancestor, supposedly. I cannot find a will for him or probate or guardianship for these 2 sons. Eventually, I did find an apprenticeship for my ancestor when he was 16. But that was several years later.
Yeah.
So something had to
that
have been
early,
going on in
that
between.
early, you may not find something like that.
Right.
A lot of
That's
it has
Sumner
to do with
County,
location, but you're
Tennessee.
lucky to find the apprentice record.
Right. I can't find one from his brother. And I'm pretty sure his would have been, he became a cabinet maker. So he probably was an apprentice to that
Well,
for
if you
my
know the
the
name of the
bricklayer.
know the name of the cabinet maker, see if you can find him among the cabinet maker himself. Although it's kind of early to be able to do that, but because those are
Well, I know I don't know who he would have been apprenticed to since I hadn't found that. His name is James R. Wilson. Wilson doesn't help,
no.
especially with a lot of Wilsons in Sumner County.
Well, I would look at the civil suits also,
Okay.
and I would also look at what Sumner County newspapers there are to see if a cabinet maker is advertising.
Hmm. Thank you.
Sure. Are we done?
I can't think of anything. I didn't think of that till Shelley brought up her question.
Well, is there any good hints on where to find equity in civil suits?
Well, they're all going to be in the county.
Uh-huh.
So they'll either be in the county or they'll be in the state archives.
Okay, I've had some limited success finding things in the Georgia State Archives. They have two websites, and one of them refers to the other,
Right.
and both of them have kind of cranky search functions.
Welcome to the real world.
Yeah.
You might want to check Rayburn County newspapers because maybe something would be mentioned in the newspapers also, if they haven't.
Yeah. I don't know if they do. It's kind of out in the sticks, you know.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they don't have newspapers.
True.
It's all right, everybody?
I guess it would have. Okay.
No, go ahead.
I haven't checked to see whether there would be newspapers in. I guess you'd have a Nashville paper, but whether there was like a Gallatin paper that early, I hadn't looked.
Yeah, well, we know there was a Nashville newspaper that early, the Tennessean.
Right.
So, and Sumner's not that far from Davidson, so
Right.
probably included.
And Gallatin is not that far up the road
Yeah, I know where I've
from
been. I've
Nashville.
been to Gallatin. Been to the courthouse there.
Well, next time they're there, look for James Wilson.
I haven't been there in 35 years.
I haven't been to our new archives in Nashville. Looks good, but at least it's got more parking.
Yeah, I think I've been to the new archives once, but that would be new in the last 10 years, I think, not new in the.
No, this is like 2 or 3 years ago it opened.
Oh, so
The
another
new one.
new one. I'm on my third
Well,
the archives.
huh?
Anyway,
Because that old one had about 8 parking places. If you didn't get there really early, you didn't get it.
yeah, well. All right, another day has gone
Okay.
by.
And thank you for getting this set up so we can find it easy.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. And now we have to figure out how I can fix it so it becomes tomorrow's video.
The people I've seen do that are usually doing their live stream on YouTube.
Oh, I know, but
Yeah.
I like to see people's faces, Catherine.
Well, if I do that, it gets all wonky and cuts off every
Okay.
time I try
So
that.
anyway, I like to see the interaction versus the chat, because if you do it on YouTube, all you get is the chat,
True.
and I don't like that part. So anyway, so right,
Okay.
okay,
Well, I'm interested that your bets is not our bets.
yeah, well, you don't know that they aren't. It could be farther back,
Yeah. Yeah, way farther back.
way farther back. But anyway,
Okay.
all right, have a good one, y'all.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And we bring another live stream to an end. This is Craig at Just Genealogy, wishing you the best.